precisely what we are playing about. A lot of them have been taken to Greenland. They have seen how the ice is melting at the poles. The poles, ice is melting the poles, ice is melting the poles. Very quick. It's going very quick. This is serious. This is serious.
In this AG project, we've been focusing on the Arctic and the consequences of the ice melting. We've researched the different effects it will have on our globe and our society. On a global scale, there's a lot of debate regarding who's entitled to the resources and how the distribution of the land should commence. But how do you define the rights of an area? We've read different opinions regarding how the soon-to-be available resources should be distributed. The first point to this question is, loss of ice means more heat absorbed. Albedo is a measure of how well the Earth's surface reflects sunlight. Snow-covered sea ice has a high albedo and reflects 85% of sunlight, but the open water, revealed as ice melts, is darker and absorbs more, reflecting just 7%. The less sunlight is reflected, the more heat the planet absorbs. Professor Jennifer Francis from Rutgers University explained recently that losing reflective sea ice can in turn speed up surface warming, what's known as positive feedback, she says. As sea ice retreats, sunshine that would have been reflected back to space by the bright ice is instead absorbed by the ocean, which heats up, melting even more ice. The heat doesn't only warm the oceans, Francis explains. Excess heat entering the oceans during summer is later released back into the atmosphere, raising atmospheric temperatures too. It's one important reason why the Arctic is warming faster than the rest of the planet. Second point to this question is, melting Greenland ice sheet raises sea levels. In fact, the loss of reflective sea ice is part of the reason Arctic temperatures has risen 3 times faster than the global average in the recent decades. This effect, known as Arctic amplification, has consequences for the nearby land ice too. As land ice melts, it adds fresh water to the oceans, causing sea levels to rise and surface melt from Greenland is increasing. Satellite data suggests that over the last 20 years the Greenland ice sheet has lost 140 billion tons of ice per year. This has raised sea levels by about 7.8 millimeters, which is 12% of total sea level rise in that time. The newest climate models project that by 2100 Greenland ice sheet could contribute 4 to 9 centimeters to sea level. Earlier estimates had put that figure anywhere between 1 and 12 centimeters. Warmer sea ice-free oceans could also increase melting from Greenland's glaciers. Professor Andrew Shepard from Leeds University tells us. Small increases in the ocean temperature can quickly destabilize glaciers that flow into the oceans, and so we could expect further ice losses due to that effect too. The quicker sea ice loss causes Arctic temperatures to rise faster. The Greenland ice sheet is likely to melt, and while it isn't going to disappear anytime soon, this contributes more to sea level rise.
Thawing permafrost amplifies warming. Arctic temperatures are heating up once frozen ground in the Arctic. The term for this is aspermafrost. Scientists are worried that carbon dioxide and methane released from the carbon permafrost could maybe cause additional warming if stacking on the current greenhouse gases that already lays in the atmosphere. Discoveries show that frozen methane also exists in methane hydrates in the sea floor. Nevertheless, scientists disagree on the fact of how much carbon these frozen deposits can hold and how quickly they're heating up. So far, only small amounts of methane can be tracked from the heating in the atmosphere. Most results from human activity like agriculture and landfill, with a smaller amount released naturally from wetlands. The sooner sea ice loss causes land and ocean to warm in the Arctic, the sooner methane from heating permafrost could start contributing more to warming. Ocean circulations could change. There's a big chance that the circulation system known as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation could be disrupted by freshwater with origin from melted ice from the Arctic and Greenland. The AMOC carries warm surface water northward, giving Europe its mild climate. Climate models predict the AMOC could slow down by an average of 25% by 2100. This is because of changes in the temperature and precipitation patterns, but scientists claim that fresh water from melting ice could become increasingly important with climate change. Models suggest a slowdown in the AMOC could cool the northern hemisphere this century, but the effect is likely to be outweighed by greenhouse gas warming. But the AMOC is just one part of a giant belt with currently redistributed warmth around the world, so losing ice could affect regional climates worldwide. Changes in the strength of the AMOC can also affect sea ice melt by transporting more or less warm surface water into the region. So it's a complicated picture, and scientists have said while the rate of Arctic melting will almost certainly affect the AMOC, more research is needed to understand the full extent of the impact. Melting sea ice can influence winter weather. As temperatures rise faster in the Arctic than at lower latitudes, this changes large-scale temperature and pressure gradients, which has consequences for northern hemisphere winter weather. Professor Charles Green from Cornell University has stated, Global warming has increased the loss of summer sea ice in the Arctic, which has altered atmospheric conditions in a manner that stacks the deck in favor of more severe winter outbreaks. The pressure change alters atmospheric circulations, including the jet stream, a stream of fast-flowing air in the atmosphere. It also makes the jet stream's road change more, which allows cold Arctic air to reach further south, affecting the climate in the mid-latitudes. Scientists are just beginning to understand the effect quicker Arctic sea ice melt could have on the northern hemisphere climate. Professor Francis has stated, if the summer ice covers disappears sooner than climate models project, I would expect to see Arctic amplifications intensify sooner, and the effects on the large-scale circulation would become more conspicuous. Global effects. Melting sea ice is likely to have global consequences by unlocking new shipping routes and exposing more fossil fuel reserves. But it's clear that although Arctic sea ice only covers a small fraction of the Earth's surface, there may well be serious climate-related impacts too. And it doesn't stop with the climate. The loss of sea ice will also have consequences for the people and ecosystems in the Arctic region, as Dr. Stephen Walrus from the Center of Climatic Research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison puts it. The longer we can delay loss of sea ice cover, the longer we should be able to keep these consequences at bay.
In the past years, the ice melting effect in the Arctic has attracted many countries' attention. The many resources in the area, like minerals, petroleum, natural gas, and also frozen water, have become reasons for fight. Many countries are trying to get a part of the Arctic to be able to get some of these benefits. Nowadays, the area is divided in subregions to Russia, Canada, Greenland, Northern Alaska, Norway, and Iceland, and these countries are trying to get their part bigger, while other countries are trying to be part of it, like Denmark. New divisions and agreements are proposed, but they affect who will enjoy the Arctic resource and also the relationship among these countries related. The big interest is to get these resources now that it's becoming easier because of the ice melting. In many areas, there are conflicts to decide who will possess it, especially in the Greenland and Canada area, where Denmark also wants a bite of it.
How do you define the rights of an area? Every country has something called an exclusive economic zone, which is a sea zone where a state has special rights over the marine resources and exploration, as well as the producing of energy from wind and water. Since the Arctic is basically just sea covered with ice, it is actually possible to own these special rights for Arctic areas. But before that is a reality, you gotta get the rights from United States International Seabed Authority. In order to claim a land, the state got to have ethnic or cultural connections to the claimed area. Many countries are trying to extend their economic zones by showing proof of these connections to special parts of land or sea. An example would be the feud between Denmark, on the behalf of Greenland, and Canada, in which the two nations are fighting over a small island called Hans Island, which is positioned in the center of the Kennedy Channel. Both countries are claiming that their local population uses the island as hunting grounds and that they are right in their claims. But as you might imagine, it is really hard to come to a conclusion since both countries has an Inuit population in the island's area. Now, the question is, should Arctic zones and areas which has not yet been claimed just be every man's land? The UN International Seabed Authority says so, and the whole Arctic Sea is going to remain heritage of all mankind.
From what we've read and all the information we've gathered, we're able to conclude that there is not a simple answer to this question. What is the consequence of the Arctic ice melting, and how does it affect our globe and our society? In the not too distant future, scientists predict that the Arctic Ocean will be largely sea ice free in summer, but when exactly is hard to predict. The loss of ice means more heat is absorbed by our globe. Melting Greenland ice will raise the sea levels, thawing permafrost amplifies warming, and ocean circulations could change. And also the melting of the sea ice can influence winter weather.
When it comes to international territory which is being claimed by several countries, the laws work in complicated ways. When it comes to the Arctic, countries like Denmark and Canada often use arguments which include the ethnic and cultural attachments to the claimed area. Even though all the countries surrounding the Arctic is claiming the cold seas, the seas is remaining heritage of all mankind, which is administered by the UN International Seabed Authority. The countries got their exclusive economic zones, but they want seas beyond these zones, and that is what is troublesome. Right now they're still trying to claim land mainly for resources, but are covering it up with arguments concerning the small ethnic population living inside the polar circle. But as the Arctic is considered every man's land, there is a high chance of the countries to never succeed in their quest for resources and money. But as oil and other nature resources becomes more and more expensive, the risk of selling or giving the Arctic away is getting more and more likely.
The ice is melting at the poles,